Welcome back to another episode of Recruiting Essentials, the War Room here at Prep Baseball. I am Shooter Hunt, ultra special guest today because for me and my grandmother, as she's watching down, is probably still disappointed that I did not go to Notre Dame. But we have on Coach Ryan Munger from the University of Notre Dame. Coach Munger, welcome to the show.
Shooter, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Golden Domers. It's my grandmother. I swear, when I committed out of high school, she was so disappointed. Like, wait, you didn't go to Notre Dame? How could you not do that? So hopefully she forgives me.
Nah, it's something we hear a lot because I think there's just so many people who grew up Notre Dame fans. And so like, there'll be times where we might get a yes, might get a no. And like the parents or grandparents are like, they all should have gone to Notre Dame. So that's a story we hear a few more times than you'd think.
Is that something you look, and we're going to dive right into this because I have so many questions, but like, is that something you look for? Because I know there's been times where you and I have had great conversations on the road, but I'll see like, yeah, this dad's rocking a Notre Dame hat. Like, hey, there might be an in here. Is that something you're looking for at games?
100%. Like, it's not like you're going to always see Notre Dame apparel when you're watching a game, but when we can find a connection, we definitely try to tap into it. Like, people on campus, they talk about the Notre Dame network and the alumni base and, just how far the reach goes at Notre Dame. So that is something when we can take advantage of it, we definitely try to.
Yeah, you have it is so massive, and honestly, it's not just you guys, right? Like each state has their you're either this fan or that fan. This family does this. Now it's not like a detriment. Like you still get people who didn't grow up Notre Dame guys because obviously it's a world-renowned institution and brand. Having that ability to get into those alumni bases and get some names because of your coast-to-coast presence here. How else do you guys utilize that? Because I would think, and this is really diving in quickly, I would think having to say no to some people is probably the toughest thing. You have so many great alumnus that are like, this guy, my nephew can really play, my dad can do this. But ultimately, you're trying to win a national title, right? That's what Notre Dame is. You're trying to get there. Is it tough to weigh the yeses and nos? And how do you kind of balance that in recruiting?
If I figure that answer out, I'll let you know. But yeah, it is tough, right? Because like you run into some guys who, they might be right there on the threshold for you, but they're like, yeah, Notre Dame's my number one school. Y'all offer me, coach, I'm in. And then you have those guys that maybe they're just a tier above and they're weighing some options. And so I think that's, part of the balancing act that is recruiting that, sometimes you have to figure out and you have to make a decision on.
And I think most schools deal with this, and you guys especially, because again, that alumni base is so strong. And to parents out there, I think a lot of times it's not so much the coach saying no, we don't like this guy, as much as hey, we have this need. Yes, we really like you, but we only have room for 3 catchers, whatever it may be. And if you start stacking, not that it's a favor, but yeah, we were taking this guy on, that guy, this guy, all of a sudden those are 9 players that you're like, we're not sure on this player. So I think the parents out there are listening, these coaches still do like your son, and he can play good. They go to another school. Yeah, not that we missed on him, but I'm glad he's doing well at school X and Y, right?
100%.
It's now to dive in a little bit back. You and I met. You were coaching at Davidson, so you come over from Davidson to Notre Dame, but you played at Duke before that. And I was diving in. I had no idea that you were from the Woodlands. So the Houston area in Texas, Woodlands, massive. To those who are listening nationally, the Woodlands just produces nonstop baseball players. It's really a great spot for families and also for baseball and other sports. But you go over to Duke. Talk about the decision to head to Duke because of the academics, and we're going to tie that into what you're doing now at Notre Dame and how that's helped you. But you go over to Duke. What was your recruiting process like? Because I would imagine you put a lot of time in the classroom as well.
My recruiting story makes no sense. I was a tall, skinny defensive catcher that could not hit to save his life. There were multiple coaches that were like, just try not striking out and we'll give you an offer. I continued to strike out. So that didn't go well. So I actually was committed to Midland Junior College. And then the June 2nd, after I graduated high school, we're still playing in the state tournament. I get a phone call from Coach Pierce, who was at Rice at the time, and then Coach Boggs at Duke, because they were both losing catchers to the draft. And at that point, I guess the the timeline changed. So all of a sudden, some of these guys became draft eligible. Duke had a high school guy that they were going to lose. And so they had to like go search the ranks. And it was like, hey, there's this kid committed to junior college who has 7 APs under his belt. Like, he's at least smart enough and he can defend. If we can ever teach him how to hit, then he might be a decent player. And so, once Duke offered me, that was always kind of more of the fit I was looking for. I was trying to find, that right academic fit and, something that would challenge me both on the field and in the classroom.
But you had the foresight to at least lay the foundation. You had those AP classes, right? And I think talking to some of the higher academic schools, obviously you guys had Notre Dame, a prestige academic institution, taking those AP classes and being able to get involved, like, it still matters, right? There's still student athletes, even in the age of, oh, these guys are all NIL. No, not everybody is making $1 million. Yeah, the quarterback, but like, it was fascinating that you were able to know, like, hey, I'm smart. I want to lay the foundation. Probably took great tests, but then you had the ability late in the process to pivot.
Yeah, no, it was unique. I was lucky. I had, a really good support system. My grandmother was an English teacher and she actually went to Rice. And so like, there wasn't really much of a choice. Like, I had to challenge myself in the classroom. So like, I grew up getting my butt kicked in Scrabble by my grandmother. So like, that was just kind of part of the process. But, it was interesting because it was just like, I knew baseball was always where I was the most interested, but like, my parents and my grandparents, like, they never kind of let me just limit myself to the baseball side of things. And I think some people kind of forget, what doors open to you because of the academics, whether you even come to an academic institution or not, right? Like, hey, even with scholarships going up, like, hey, the better grades you have, the more academic money that you might be able to get. So like, I understand like people sometimes like, oh, like, yeah, I'll take it easy and it'll be great. I can just focus on baseball. Like, we talk about it here at Notre Dame, but like, you just kind of have to like choose your hard and you have to choose when you want to do hard. Right. And so like, the sooner you can kind of jump into, your hard things, the easier it makes your life later on in the process. And so that's where like, hey, do you want to pick the hard stuff earlier or later? Because at some point it's coming.
That's incredible. The way you just put that, and I hope that kids are listening out there, because that blue collar mentality, like rolling into that, you're such a catcher too. Just talking to you, like, catchers become such great coaches, but you're taking good classes, right? Everybody, I mean, I'm sure you're the same way growing up. What's the quickest way to the big leagues? Being a catcher, right? Like a defensive catcher, the same way. But to have that option late in the process and to continue to maintain, like, hey, I'm going here. This is where I'm at. I'm on a different schedule from this side of things. Talk a little bit about, like, you go from Duke, where you're a captain. Like, you can't say enough good things about you. You're captain at Duke. You come from the Woodlands. You have Texas. You go to North Carolina. Then you go to Davidson, which is where we kind of first hit off, right? Davidson, which is a private school, North Carolina, which I think we're at 20 D1 schools in North Carolina now. It's a lot. But what was it like there? And kind of what did you learn at Duke that you then jump into the coaching, and what were you learning in your first coaching stint?
Yeah, so I got a chance, like, Coach Pollard was my head coach my senior year, and he was the one, like, he kind of helped jumpstart me into coaching. And so, there were some good coaches I got to be around that talked to me about a bunch of different things. I got to work with some great coaches, and Rucker Taylor, who's now the head coach at Davidson, and then Dick Cook, who was the head coach at the time. And honestly, Coach Cook just gave me a bunch of opportunity to, both fail as a coach and to kind of figure some things out. I think I tried picking as many coaches' brains as I could to figure things out. I think one of my strengths was like, I understood all the things I didn't know. So like, I just asked as many questions as I could. And I remember, talking to Coach Josh Jordan, and I was like, hey, talk to me about your recruiting process. And like, he took me through this 60 slide PowerPoint presentation he had at the time. And I was like, all right, talk to me about like figuring out players. And he was like, just go to good events. Like, he's like, whether you get them to Davidson or not, doesn't matter, but just go learn what good players look like, go learn how good players move. And then when you start going to other events, then you'll know what good players are supposed to look like. And then you'll kind of start figuring. So that was like one of the first things I did when I finally started to go on the road. It was just like, okay, let's just go watch good players and see what they look like at a young age. And then see how can we apply that to getting good players to Davidson? And then how do we keep making connections? How do we make inroads where we can start making some things work for us at Davidson? And again, I think at every school, you have to figure out a little bit like, what's your niche? What's your selling point? What can you develop? And then how do you tie all that in together?
Is Davidson, this is a random question. Davidson, I feel like when I was going through the process, one of the big things was they had like a laundry service. So like you didn't have, is that still there? Do you know?
It is not. They
Oh,
shut it down right about like 2017, but that was like one of the most like popular questions. They were like, so like, wait, we can just drop off our laundry, come back tomorrow, it'll be clean and folded for us. I was like, yep,
it's amazing. There's so many schools that have like different little things like that.
yeah,
I'm thinking back, like some of the schools that, hey, it's pass fail. I think Brown was like, you could take every class pass fail. I was like, wait, so I don't get a grade. I just have to like get above a 60 and I'm good. Like, but anyway, tying back into like, you talk about getting with Josh Jordan, who's been on the show before, with recruiting wise, and you talk about seeing good players. One, what is a good player to you? What are you looking for at those events? And if things have changed, and we could dive in a little bit to that, but start off with like, what is a good player? What hits you in the face as soon as you step on the field?
I think for us, a little bit starts with just our approach of, on the position side of things, like every class, in our opinion, like you got to have a catcher, you got to have a shortstop, and you got to have a center fielder. That's
okay.
By just recruiting
Up the middle,
101, right? And, start from the middle of the field, and then you can kind of work out from there. And so, I think you need to have those three guys have to have the ability to play defense. Like it always travels, it always shows up, and it doesn't slump. And so I think those are big places for us to start. As you start looking at hitters, I think trying to keep it simple of like, hey, do they have balance in their swing? Do they have strength, in their hand? Is the ball actually able to jump through the gaps? And then do they make good decisions? I think if you're chasing at a young age, you're probably going to keep chasing. You're probably going to keep swinging and missing when you get to college. Like the game only gets harder. And again, the cool thing is there's way more data on that we get to see, and we actually get to, kind of fact check ourselves and fact check our eyes nowadays than what there used to be. And then on the mound, I think, there's obviously a certain threshold of stuff that you're looking for, like that doesn't ever disappear. But, Coach Volt's our pitching coach. He does a great job with our guys. And, he talks a lot about just, hey, you got to be able to come in, compete at max hand speed, and throw multiple pitches in the zone, pitch with 2 pitches in the zone and show a third. And so, I think for us, like that's kind of a baseline of like, hey, can you actually throw 2 pitches for strikes, at a young age? Because again, the strike zones only get smaller as you move up to the next level. And so, sure, like, is there room for the body to be projectable? Like, is the arm loose and quick? Does it work that way? Like, okay, hey, if we continue to put strength on them, we get them in our weight room, we get them into some of our facilities, are they going to continue to develop? So I don't know if there's ever necessarily like a one trait, like, hey, this is what Notre Dame's necessarily going to look for. But I think just kind of at a quick glance, like those are a couple of things that we talk about and try to emphasize when we are on the road.
Also, and I think as being a national pro, like I feel like I end up being around the national guys more, right? Because I'm traveling the whole country the same way you are, as California, Texas, East Coast, especially the Northeast, for you guys. But what we've done at Prep Baseball is like really made a concerted effort to like raise the bar of analytics, right? Like, how do we help the college coaches more so? How do we help these parents and kids connect with college coaches? Because not everybody has the Notre Dame recruiting money to kind of go around the country, but like whether it's blast motion, TrackMan, a lot of stuff for us now involved with the jump data and even the splits beyond just the 60, like the 10 yards, 30 yards. There's so many deeper things that I've been diving into. Do you guys analyze that stuff as well? And how important is for you to be able to get our data and sift through it to make correct choices on where we need to recruit next?
Yeah, it's great because it can, one, confirm some things that you see, right? And then 2, like it can kind of open up some doors for some other guys, because you're like, like, that makes him a little bit more intriguing, because you're like, all right, like I didn't know how much more was left in the tank. But it's like, you start looking at some of the vault data, or maybe you're looking at some of the visual edge stuff that's talking about how the guys see the ball, and you're just like, all right, like I always thought he made good decisions, but this stuff is backing up kind of what we're seeing. And so I think sometimes it really has the ability to enhance some of the guys we're recruiting. And then again, for some guys, I think it has the ability to kind of get their foot more so in the door than maybe we would have thought if we were just going off of our own eyes.
For sure. Even the S2 cognition stuff like that, I've been locked in on. And it's almost like you're talking about we can all think back to writing essays. You, as your grandmother, being an English teacher, where's your supporting evidence? And hey, I really like this kid. oh, this works. And you kind of find the stuff. Oh, wow, his timing, his perception, his ability to like maintain balance in the box. That it's just so important, especially if you're seeing them in a short window.
Right.
So like, talk to me about rolling up to your first game. The future games is just, the biggest event in the country.
Sure.
Every uncommitted guy's there. You're going to be there for the workout day. And though I just got back recently from super sophomore games on the West Coast, Oregon, go through the workout day, like kind of circling names. Like, this kid took 10, 12 swings. I really like the way this works. I'm going to continue to follow this. And having that track record, is that something that you do? Like, hey, I like this. Now I'm going to go ahead and follow it. So, hey, I like this in a February event. I kind of tracked him throughout the spring. And then on June 1st, or after you guys go to Omaha, July 1st, we're out and checking out this guy immediately. Is that how you kind of track things?
Yeah, it doesn't always work, quite, in that linear progression, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some guys, it just happens really, really fast.
Yeah.
Recruiting, no one's recruiting story is going to be the same, right? But like, when we can, we want to be able to create as big of a book on a player as we can, because again, we just feel better about our evaluations the more information we're able to collect. So, I think with the new recruiting rules, right? Like, I think sometimes everybody it happens in July futures, August 1 happens, and then all of a sudden, like, it's just kind of a whirlwind, and kids get hit in the face with a waterfall of phone calls. But like, for us as coaches, like, I think the more we can kind of communicate with their coaches, the more we can collect more data on them, more evaluations on them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the better we feel, and then usually the more we're convicted in some of our recruiting processes with guys.
Because as much as things have slowed down a little bit from the recruiting side, you guys still have to hit the ground running, right? Like, there is still an aspect of, hey, Notre Dame is a great school. It's as good as it gets. But like, you went to Duke. Duke's a great school as well. And Virginia and UCLA, Texas, whatever it may be, LSU. You need to have that comfort in the guy you're recruiting. It's not like it took, what's the saying? Like, it took 2 years for some of these guys on August 1st to be overnight successes.
Yep.
Right? Like, it was not, hey, we saw this guy yesterday and we're diving in. No, we may have track record. We may have seen this kid in North Jersey have a full spring. We went out there and watched him pitch. How has you approached, yes, we can't talk to a 2028 right now, right? That class. How are you approaching the recruiting of those guys? And then even in 2029 is kind of getting those lists together. Is that something you're doing as well?
The 29s very loosely.
Mm-hmm.
The 28s, yeah. I think where I think most schools can start to create an edge for themselves in the recruiting world is like, if you can get guys to camp, you can actually interact with them and spend some time with them, right? Like, I think camps used to be popular when everybody's young because you could get an offer and you could commit out of it. Yeah. Nowadays, it's like, well, now you can actually start getting to build a relationship with the coaches. The coaches can actually start to get to know you, and like, you start to figure out who's actually interested in Notre Dame, who's not. And, I think that, fast tracked a couple of guys we committed in the 26 class and the 27 class, just because like, hey, they were at camp and we actually had a previous relationship that started from there, and, kind of enhanced some things as we were able to truly start recruiting them.
Is that something that's important for you, for a kid to kind of show some interest? Like, and how do they show that interest, right? I always get like, should I be sending this email to this coach? Should I send this tweet? What do you want from a prospective student athlete, even if you can't talk to them yet? How do you want them to get onto your radar?
It's tough. I don't know if there's one answer that works for each guy, right?
Yeah.
Because again, they show up in different ways. But I think, again, like, it's so important for us to just build connections as coaches and talk to as many summer coaches. So I think just getting updates sometimes from those summer guys, I think, is obviously a big thing for us. I'm never against, emails or the tweets and things like that. But as like, you get a lot of them. So a lot of times you can kind of miss some unintentionally. And so it is hard to kind of keep that constant communication going. But I think, again, as you kind of hear from guys so often, you're like, all right, like, they're putting in a lot of time and effort to show their interest in Notre Dame. So like, that's a real guy we should be able to recruit and, be able to make a decision on.
Now, is it just so like, if I was sending an email to you, I'm a 2028, should I send it to the whole staff individually? Like, I'm always a huge proponent of like, send it to kind of the lower guys, like the GA or whatnot, because they're just getting started. There's some intrigue. They're not bogged down like you are with visits, having this guy around, entertaining all these spots. Like, their job is like to essentially feed you names. Is that important as well?
Yeah, I think I would recommend guys just email every email or every staff you can find. Like at some point, like that, it's your name's less likely to slip through the cracks if you're trying to get the attention of 6 people versus one.
I'm looking at like I'm thinking now like this is super out there, but like maybe send Marcus Freeman, like the football coach, a random baseball email. Then he's gonna come by and be like, "Hey, I got this like random email."
I, I don't know how often Coach Freeman's checking his email right
Well,
now.
his assistant, I'm sure somebody's checking it for him.
Yeah.
But it's that would be an absolute power move. Actually, do not do that. Don't bombard Coach Freeman with that stuff. But it is so important. Like, get the process going, and even tying back to your recruiting process. Like, hey, it was slower. You're going to a junior college. All this stuff is happening, and I can imagine even a kid right now that you're recruiting in the 26 class is out there. Like, right. Hey, it's getting late. It's almost November. I want to be in school. Like there's pressures in that, but understanding like, hey, it is a process. Like we're trying to evaluate here. There are different players going to different schools. What advice would you have for a kid, let's say in the 27 class for next year? He's going to go through the summer. He comes to the senior future games, which blew up this year, was outstanding. The process being a little bit slower. How do you calm a player down who's like, hey, this may take a little bit?
I don't necessarily know how to calm them down. Like, honestly, the best way I know how to, like, if I'm talking to them is I just tell them my story because I'm like, yeah, I didn't commit till after my senior year. So, again, everyone's path is going to end up being a little bit different. And I think you just have to be okay with it. It's so tough with the way social media works is like, you feel like as a young person, you just look on Twitter or Instagram and all you see is 15 different dudes committing that day and you're still waiting for your opportunity. And unfortunately, because of social media, you only see the positive stories. Like you don't hear about everybody else who's still kind of sitting there working while they wait and trying to go through the process as well. And so I think you're just kind of in an age where it gets hard because all you know how to do is kind of compare yourself to people who are being successful. But I think you just have to trust a little bit of your support system and your work that you're putting in. And at some point, like it'll pay dividends. Like you may have to get creative in terms of how you get in front of some people and you probably have to stay determined to keep your name out there. But at some point, like if you keep working, like you will end up at, the right spot for you.
And you kind of talk about that new age and like, which we can bring in, like the transfer portal it's out there regardless, but like, what's interesting about you guys, you've done a really nice job with freshmen, and you have this year one of my favorite classes. It's not a secret as much as it's been out there. But like, how do you weigh? Hey, we have to win right now, and everybody's getting older, bringing in guys, and you can even talk about the school. I'm sure with an institution like Notre Dame, it's probably really difficult to get in any transfers. But you guys have done a really nice job getting guys on campus. Is that important for you to lay a foundation in getting your own program philosophy built in guys from day one?
100%. I think the head coaches at Notre Dame, they kind of talk about it of like, we want to major in high school recruitments and then minor in the portal. And for us, like out of the portal, it is very much grad specific. Notre Dame's thought process is they want you to come to Notre Dame to get your degree from Notre Dame. So like, this is our 4th year at Notre Dame and we have our first undergrad transfer on the roster this year. So, we don't really get many, it doesn't line up academically. And so when we do bring in grad guys or bring in portal guys, they are usually, transfer or grad transfers who are coming in for a year. So, but again, I think for us, like it's always, hey, where are we going to get our best players from? For us, we think the best players will come from the high school ranks. Like I think that is our niche, and we feel like we have the ability to show them, competition and opportunity. Like we don't ever sit there and be like, hey, yeah, like you're gonna be playing this spot as a freshman. Like I can't guarantee that to anybody, but we at least have a roadmap to say like, yeah, we had 4 freshmen last year on the position side of things who played a ton. 2 of them played every day. We had 3 arms that pitched a ton of meaningful innings for us last year. So like we have plenty of freshmen right in front of you who have done it, and you will have those same opportunities. You just have to go take advantage of those opportunities.
That's awesome. So like bringing all these freshmen, like I'm sure building a team philosophy? Like what is Notre Dame baseball? What do you guys take pride in? What are important aspects to the program for you guys?
In what regards? Because there's a bunch of different
Well, I
ways.
think the mentality, like I'd heard in the past, like this is probably before you guys 10 plus years ago, but like you're going up against Miami and Duke and all the schools like down south, right? You're bringing some Northeast kids. It's a cold weather area.
Sure.
How is there? And I felt like those kids in the past, like they took pride in the fact that like, hey, when you come up here, oh, it's cold. It's not cold to us. We don't feel that. And we take pride in the fact of what this is now. Like South Bend is gorgeous, like, but there will be cold aspects to things. How do you guys deal with that? And then is that something you take pride in? I guess like, hey, we're going to be tougher.
Yeah. No, I kind of what I talked about earlier, like it's kind of a Notre Dame thing, but like we just talked about choosing hard, like steer into it. Like if you're scared of it, all right, like it's probably not the fit for you. Several head coaches, like they talk about it, like, people who don't come to Notre Dame is because they can't. Like, you can't do the academics, you can't handle the weather, you're not good enough to play in the ACC, things like that. And so, I think we try to just steer right into it and say like, this is who we are. And this is what makes us Notre Dame. And this is what makes us different. And this is what, our path is to being successful. And again, like, is the weather a thing? Sure. I think there's a little bit of this misconception of like the weather being warm in the South. Like,
Yeah.
Again, to be honest with you, I think we get a little luckier because people know it's cold up here. Like we have 2 full indoor football facilities here. So like, it's very easy for us to go inside and get our work in and go. Like when I was playing, like, okay, it's 29 and sleeting. We either can practice outside and be miserable in it or not practice. Whereas like our guys, like when the weather's nice, we go outside. If the weather's not nice, then we have a full football indoor to practice in. And like, we have 2 of them. So you don't have to like conflict. And like, we have all the tools and the toys that work inside for us as well. So like our guys don't ever lose any sort of data or development that they would be getting on the field. Like it's all the same. They get the same information, they get the same competition. And so, sure, the weather's a thing, but like our development, our ability to work with guys never slows down because of the resources we have here.
What are key? And you talked about, you guys, I'm sure the pitching lab, all the fun metrics and analytic tools there. What are things that you find to be key for hitting? So like you step in, like what are like, we're going to do this every day. We're going to get ready. So if I'm a hitter, I'm a kid considering, are you like, talk about your hitting philosophies specifically and like what you want your guys doing, because you guys have produced some really good players. I love the last 4 years since you've been there.
Yeah, I mean, we go into the weeds with a lot of guys. I think 5 couple metrics we put in front of them on a day-to-day basis is going to be like, hey, quality at bats, your barrel percentage, your hard hit percentage, your whiff, and then your chase. Mm-hmm. And so for us, we try to keep it pretty process oriented with them. And we kind of have our different tiers of like, hey, what's good, what's average, and what's not good. And so typically the guys who can, be in the good categories in 3 out of those 5, like they typically see their names in the lineup. And for us, that's just kind of a very simple way of, being able to process like, hey, how are my at-bats coming along? Am I able to actually provide consistent quality at-bats for my team? Am I able to drive the baseball? And when I do, is it at the right angle? Like, am I making good decisions, right? And so, because I think whether it's hitting now or when you and I were in school, right? If you swung at strikes and took balls, and when you did swing at strikes, you hit them hard, everybody would be like, oh, that's a pretty good hitter. And so, I think it's our job as coaches to, look at the 13 pages of data and notes and all the things that we have in front of them, and then try to make it as simple as possible for our players and make sure it's an umbrella that allows all of our players to be successful, right? Because like when you look at our lineup, like we're going to have a couple dudes who can really run and can apply pressure to. We're going to have a couple boppers who are trying to hit the ball, over the fence or off the wall on a pretty consistent basis. And then you're going to have some guys who can do a little bit of everything. And so I think you need to have systems in place that allow all of your players to be successful and thrive in it.
It sounds like, and I'm sure at Notre Dame, I've talked to some schools in the past, you're getting like a smarter level kid, right? Like kids who test really well. And I'm always concerned about the paralysis by analysis. Mm-hmm. How do we get there? And I've been a big believer in player development to like guide towards discovery. So like I'm going to gently steer this player towards like, hey, this clicks. I've thought of this. Like, not that I as a coach need to put my stamp on, like, I showed you how to do this. It's more like gradually that constant gentle pressure towards discovering it. I'm always amazed at like being that conduit between like, hey, we don't need to throw 15 pages of notes.
Right.
Like honestly, swing it strikes. But is that something for you? Like that's what I'm doing on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's a real thing. The biggest thing I've found with guys is like you have to show them you have all of the information that they want, and then you have to kind of like you said, steer or lead the horse to water and try to
Yeah.
get them to be like, okay, we have the 9 million things you want to know and you want to look at, and you want to feel confident in what the numbers are saying. But here's like the two biggest things that you need to be good at for you to be a good player. And so that way, because again, like if we can simplify it for the guys and let them go play loose, play free, play aggressive, then that's usually when they play their best baseball. Because like you talk to any high school player, any college player, and you're like, all right, tell me about when you were playing your best. They're probably going to tell you they weren't thinking that much. They were having a lot of fun and they were playing aggressive. And so like it is unique because again, they have access to so much more information nowadays than they ever did before. So they want to know it, but they would also tell you not knowing it allows them to play better. So I think that's the kind of fine line you have to walk as a coach of like showing the guys, hey, we have the information. We will go through it with you, when we need to, a couple times a semester, and make sure you feel confident in what we're working on. But we're also going to simplify it and keep it as free and easy as possible for you on a consistent basis.
It's so important to do that, especially at a school with so many self-starters who are like, we
Yeah.
have to like almost like we don't have to push you. I would even think about like, we don't need a motivational speaker here. Like these kids are here because they are already motivated. We're the type that we need a comedian. We need a comedian to come in or a hypnotist or whatnot. That's really cool with regards to that. Anything else on the recruiting side of things that you can see coming down the pipe? We got a lot of parents who are tuned in, kids who are listening, probably 29s, getting ready. Is probably growing up in North Jersey, there's a whole host of North Jersey kids who are probably like got their Golden Dome hats on, ready to go. What is coming next for recruiting? How are things going to change, and what are things you would like to see happen?
So the biggest thing I'm paying attention to right now is the size of the draft. With the CBA being up in December, some of the conversations around that coming up again, hey, maybe we're going to reduce a few more minor league teams and we're going to take the draft size, from 20 to 10 or whatever, right? Like I don't know specific. I'm not in those rooms, but like there's definitely rumors of that happening. And so again, if that happens, that's only going to continue to bottleneck college baseball, right? I think it'll make college baseball a better product. You're going to continue to have more players who stay in school and get their degree and maybe who are in school longer. But I think that could be an interesting thing for the young players in the high school world to pay attention to is like, if that draft class goes down, that's going to mean there's going to be more players staying in college. So like, if you're a guy who really values playing early, like you're going to have to understand, like I may have to pay attention to what schools I'm looking at then, or if again, I'm going to whatever school, they may have a lot of competition there. And again, roster sizes just got smaller. So again, the recruiting classes could continue to get smaller, and that might make things a little bit harder for the 27 class and then into the 28 and 29.
Wow, I'm going to be locked into the winter meetings now too. One of the things that I was looking at recently, and I saw Tim Pernetti, who's the I don't know what he is at the American Conference, but he's a legend, incredible. He's the Rutgers AD. He was at IMG, and then the IMG president was talking about as well, like having almost JV programs, like adding, and it's something that you guys could probably do, these bigger programs. And during COVID, I was like, the rosters expanded. But it was like, how do you help develop these kids, keep them in the program? I always thought like Notre Dame's playing Miami on a Friday night. Hey, Friday morning, like our 8 freshmen and your 8 freshmen, instead of us doing our Monday off day scrimmage, let's just play against you guys. How do we get to that? Like that's one of the things I'm fascinated about, because I think the push towards, hey, expanding the number of student athletes in college is starting to happen. So parents get on board. Like we need more student athletes. They create leaders. They generate so much to society for us. But like, I think that you guys would be a great spot for that. Especially, it's so hard as a freshman to play. I always tell kids like, freshman year stinks. It's like really difficult. You're away from home. You're trying to figure stuff out. It's awesome if you're playing. It stinks if you're not playing. Like, how do you stay locked in? But I thought like if a JV program could happen, it would just allow for more development while maintaining the year.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting, right, is you had hey, you have to get the roster size down to 34 in December. And the thing where I don't know how much that necessarily changed is like, schools can still have however many players they want in the fall, and then they can dwindle it down to 34 going from there. Like, I feel like I would rather see a bigger rot, like, hey, stick to 40, but just make it 40 at the start of the fall.
Yeah.
So, like, that way, like, hey, you have a set roster. Because, like, to be honest with you, like, if you're at 34, it's not that easy to enter squad anymore. Like, we have a couple guys dinged up, and we have one guy playing football. So, like, next thing you know, like, you're short staffed. So, like, and again, if we're going to keep it that way, then I would love to see us have more fall games. And honestly, I think it'd be good for the sport, because, like, hey, could you tie it into, hey, maybe football's playing the same team, and, like, hey, maybe the baseball team does that same, like, where the football team plays
I
on
love
Saturday,
that.
and then the baseball team plays on Sunday, right? Like, you have the fan bases who are already there. But again, it just makes it so much easier to play when you don't have to have 16 defenders out there. Because again, if you've got a couple catchers or a couple guys who are dinged up, like, next thing you know, you're getting pretty short staffed out there to scrimmage in the fall, and then that's kind of taken away from your development. Or again, the inverse can be true of, like, hey, if some school wants to bring in 50 in the fall, that's fine, they can enter squad, but then that's still going to be a bunch of dudes who are going to get axed come December.
Yeah, it's especially for you guys being a private institution, so high academic. Getting guys in is difficult. You talk like this. We won't go down this tangent, but like catching is so important, and like those guys catch so much for the fall. Like there are nicks that come up. You drop 2 catchers. Now you can hardly enter squad. Not only can you hardly enter squad, it's hard to throw bullpens because like those guys are catching. It's kind of that snowball effect of stuff. So we'll see what happens when I guess the ABCA conference and all that stuff comes underway. Right, this has been awesome. Like incredible job. My grandmother's gonna be very proud of me for having the Irish on here. And I do need to get that polo. So I've been telling you that hat. Like every time I see you on the road, I'm like, that hat's nice. But I have the 2 most important questions of this episode and every episode. This is the shop.prepbaseball.com segment of things. Be sure to head over there to get some apparel. I got this little Q-zip working today, some hats behind me. But I ask every coach this. I'm coming in South Bend. I got my 6 visits lined up. I'm going this place, that place, all over the country. What is a coffee shop I need to go to? Like you talked about, choosing hard. I'm going to choose soft. I'm going to go get a latte warm and just sit nice in front of the fire there in South Bend. What's a coffee shop I need to go to? And what is the dinner place you're taking me to where I'm thinking I could stay in South Bend? This is my spot.
Coffee shop. My personal preference is probably going to be Uptown Kitchen.
Okay. Uptown Kitchen locked in.
One, it's a good breakfast spot too, but I do like the coffee as well. They got some options. And then for dinner, I'm actually going to say eat on campus at Roars. So it is. So we have a hotel right on campus, right on Notre Dame Ave. It's like 5-star. It's great. And so like you eat right there, like you drive up, you're looking at the Golden Dome, you've got the quad right there in front of you. And so it's a good setup. And so like you want a pretty good steak, you want to have a good time, like eating right there on campus at Roars is good. And then probably afterwards, go hang out at the Linebacker, which is one of the students' favorite bars, post-game celebration after the Irish win.
Well, I'm obviously going to have to make my way to Roars. Actually, can you book me a room there? Probably for that first playoff weekend. I'm sure the Green Wave will be up in South Bend for that playoff weekend. Then I'll be at the Linebacker afterwards, just to like get a feel for the environment.
I think there was more security when Joe Montana came back and stayed at Morrison than there would be if the president showed up on campus.
Well, that's awesome stuff. Ryan Munger of Notre Dame here on another excellent episode of Recruiting Essentials. Hopefully lots of questions answered on the recruiting side for all you parents and players out there from coast to coast. The Golden Domers are ready to have a big year. Got a great freshman class. Be ready. Any Irish fans out there, some really talented freshmen, but also a Prep Baseball All-American sophomore class who's ready to make a huge impact this year on the field. Coach Munger, thank you so much for joining the show.
I appreciate it, Shooter, as always, and go Irish.
Until next time, this has been a Recruiting Central at Prep Baseball, and we will see each and every one of you at the ballpark.